Greetings and welcome to another special episode of Morrowind Showcases. This time around, taking a look at all the major town expansions and overhauls for the Jewel of the Ascane Isles, the city of Suran. As always, I'm your host, Dark Elf Guy, and some of you may remember that in October, or possibly it was November of last year, we did an episode dedicated to showing off all the major Balmora overhauls and expansions side by side to provide a detailed breakdown of just what each mod did and how it changed the city in question. That was originally meant to be, just a one-off, since Balmora was a popular city with a lot of mods for it. But since then, and due to popular demand, I've decided to make this into a mini-series of sorts, with each episode looking at a different city and comparing all the various mods for each one. Today we're going to be taking a look at all the mods for Suran, the second largest of the Hlaalu settlements on Vardenfell, and much like with, Balmora, there's actually a lot of different expansions and overhauls to cover this scenic and somewhat, just a sleepy little trade town in the Ascane Isles region. As always, download links for all the mods we'll be taking a look at here can be found down below in the video description. And we do have about 12 mods that we're going to be taking a look at here in today's video. So this video is going to get a bit on the long side, and trust me, by the end of it, you're going to be sick and tired of me just, saying the word Suran over and over, especially since I'm probably mispronouncing it. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started with our first mod, Charitable Morrowind's Vision of Suran by MikuMD. And this is a relatively newer and also relatively unknown mod that was released back in 2015. And the goal of this rather ambitious modding project was to do something, a little like Morrowind Rebirth, only focusing solely on developing the world visually with landscape and town overhauls, instead of delving into gameplay elements. The project was never really finished, and to this day it only covers about 5 or 6 towns, including Citadine, Plesiad, Ghost Gate, parts of Balmora, Ebonheart, and of course Suran here. The author was a pretty big fan of vanilla Morrowind assets, so Charitable Morrowind was really designed with a vanilla Morrowind install in mind, and of course it uses only vanilla assets as far as I can tell. But for the purpose of our showcase here, I'm going to be using Melkor's Ascane Isles trees, which, does sort of change the impact that this mod has here, so just keep that in mind. And anyway, out of all the towns that this mod touches upon, Suran is perhaps the most detailed and cluttered, with a scenic overhaul of the town's market plaza, including a new fountain in the middle here, new streetlights and banners, and also outdoor dining outside the tavern. And you also notice that there's just a ton of trees dotting the skyline here, giving Suran a sort of forested appearance, which again is, just quite scenic. Though you have to remember that this was originally intended for vanilla Morrowind trees, and it really just doesn't work as well with, tree replaces, like especially Vurt's Ascane Isles trees. But having said that, it does seem to work rather well with Melkor's trees here, and also the more vanilla-friendly Ascane Isles trees by Ramiro's. You still might notice the occasional tree replacer conflict in this video here. I've tried to avoid that for the most part, but that's, just one of the issues with running this mod with an install that's, just heavy on graphical replaces like this. And anyway, this mod doesn't just overhaul Suran, it also adds in at least one new building here, an abandoned home, and it also overhauls the landscape around Suran as well, adding a forested cliff face along the road leading into and out of Suran. Which, kind of reminds me a lot of Magic Window's Stonewood Pass, if perhaps, slightly less extensive than that mod. Still, it makes for a rather dramatic and epic effect, visually speaking. And needless to say, this is a pretty unique take on Suran, and certainly I would say one of the more comprehensive and detailed overhauls that we'll be taking a look at here today. Though that detailing comes at a price, this is also one of the more FPS-heavy mods that we'll be taking a look at in today's video, and lower-end machines will almost definitely run into a lot of trouble here. Still, this is a beautiful and scenic overhaul Suran, and, one of these days I'm going to have to do a more, dedicated showcase of Charitable Morrowind. The other town overhauls that you'll find in this mod are also, pretty top-notch, quality-wise, and either way, this mod is definitely worth checking out. For our second mod in today's lineup, we have Balmora, Suran by Praedator and EnvyDeveloper, and in case you're wondering, yes, we're going through this list in alphabetical fashion, which does unfortunately mean that we have all the hard-hitting FPS mods right next to each other, as the only mod with really more framerate issues than Charitable Morrowind is Balmora. So just kind of hopping from one laggy mod to another here. And anyway, we did sort of already showcase this version of Suran back when we showcased the Balmora mod, but today we're going to be doing a slightly more detailed look at what all the Balmora does to the second largest Hlaalu settlement on Vardenfell. And first and foremost, we need to acknowledge that this is, primarily a cosmetic expansion and overhaul of the city. This mod doesn't really include any new interiors to the city of Suran here. So while it does, massively expand the town here with nearly 40 new buildings, outside of 1 or 2 exceptions, these are mostly just, shells with no interior components. And if you're using or planning to use the content-only edition of City of Balmora, you won't even see any real alterations to Suran at all, as the core content is focused entirely in Balmora and a new landmass added by this mod. That said, this is a rather scenic and epic-looking overhaul for Suran, so we're just going to fly around the city here a bit. And this vision of Suran adds really, I'd say, about 2 new expansions to the city, a set of residential neighborhoods to the north of town, something that Suran was notably lacking in vanilla Morrowind. I mean, there were pretty much no residential houses in vanilla Suran, just shops, taverns, and the manor house, which I guess was the one actual residential part of the city before. And now there's fairly dense residential neighborhoods, including an expanded market district, and also a new, sort of docks area, with several ships at port, and the ability to deliver and to bring in goods from the rest of Morrowind, something a trading city like Suran really should have had before. And really the docks here are probably my favourite part of this overhaul Suran. There's a nice sense of verticality here that just, lends a dramatic air to the waterfront here, and of course the marketplace is a pretty nice touch too. But with massive framerate drops, it can be a bit of an issue for lower-end computers. I think my FPS here is only about 13 or 14, which will give you some idea of just how heavy-hitting this mod is. And anyway, the City of Suran is a really scenic, purely cosmetic overhaul of this famed city of the SK Isles, and if you don't mind the huge FPS hit, it might be a good mod to check out. Next, we're going to be taking a look at Docks of Suran by Vallylilly, and now this is quite possibly the newest mod to be released that overhauls the town of Suran, originally released in March 2017, and this mod, much like Suran Waterfront, which we'll be taking a look at here in a bit, focuses on the Docks of Suran, adding some actual, docking platforms, as well as cranes, fishing nets, and lots of cargo, boats, rowboats, and just tons of clutter. And this is really a rather beautiful and highly detailed mod that pretty much just focuses on the lower end of town here, and not really touching anything beyond the Silt Rider and the Market Plaza, where it adds a bit more lighting as well as a Dunmiri statue of one of the saints here, and also adds a couple of just extra market stalls here. And this is personally one of my favourite little additions and overhauls of Suran here. It's a simple, lightweight, but nicely detailed, but not so much that it causes a ton of framerate issues. It also adds in a bit of verticality to the design of the lower parts of Suran here, due to, the excessive usage of cranes that just helps add in that vertical element that makes everything look better, at least in my opinion anyway. And with the addition of a lot of extra streetlights and other light sources, the lower part of town here just really lights up during the evening and nighttime hours, which really just, adds to the atmosphere here. And of course, real quick, we're just going to be taking a look at the docks during the evening hours, just so you can get an idea of the lighting effects here. Again, it's really just a beautiful mod, and in addition, it's also, compatible with some of the other Suran mods out there, like Suran Extended by Princess Stomper, White Suran and White Suran 2 by Basswalker and Melkor Dog, and it only has a very slight conflict with New Suran, so you can, play it with other Suran mods if you so desire, which is just a nice bonus feature here. But moving on, we're next going to be taking a look at Hlaalu Retexture, Suran Alterations by Logan, and now truth be told, this is a fairly small set of alterations to Suran that's included as an optional download for Hlaalu Retexture, but I thought, we'd just go ahead and cover it here. Just to show off a different take on the city here, and for the most part, what this mod does is fairly simple, adding multicolored awnings to the buildings of Suran here, as well as adding new gateways and some custom-made drinking wells for the citizens to use to, draw water and all that. And for the most part, the new detailing here is pretty minor, but when combined with the new textures from Hlaalu Retexture, it makes for a whole new city to explore. But of course, whether or not you enjoy this version of Suran is fairly dependent on whether or not you like, Logan's texture replaces. Either way, it's a nice option to, just keep in mind. But in any event, the next mod on our list here is More Detailed Places Suran by Ragox and Zaldir. And for those who don't know, More Detailed Places is a series of mods originally started by Ragox, designed to add a bit more, detailing and clutter to the various villages, towns, and cities of Ardenfell. The mod series here was eventually made into a compilation, which is what we're going to be taking a look at here, and much like the rest of the package, the additions made to Suran here are fairly light and lore-friendly, merely adding some more detailing and clutter, like boats along the waterfront, or more urns, barrels, crates, and other containers along the streets, as well as, more plant life with trees and flowers and whatnot. Though, in addition to these minor scenic overhauls, more detailed places does expand the city of Suran a little bit by adding a new house and a new guard tower along the northern entrance into the city here. And there's even a little outdoor training area with practice dummies for the guards to use. So there is, some actual new content here, and not just a scenic detailing overhaul. But for the most part, especially along the old parts of town, you'll just find some more detailing here. And especially, gardens with flowers, terrain rocks, and trees to give Suran a more natural and atmospheric look. There's also a few new street lights here and there. And overall, this is a pretty lightweight and scenic overhaul that, just doesn't really change much. Only slightly expanding the city, and just making Suran a, more pleasant city to visit when you're dropping by this part of the SK Niles region. And next up, we have Morrowind Rebirth, the city of Suran by Transmaster. And for the record, since Morrowind Rebirth updates on average about once every 2 months, this is the latest visual update for Suran found in Morrowind Rebirth 4.6. And the city here has undergone an absolute ton of changes since the early days of the New Cities project, which is what Morrowind Rebirth was called before it became Rebirth. And for those who remember Suran from past versions of Morrowind Rebirth, you'll remember that Suran once had a larger dock area, a Dunmiri statue in the middle of the market square here, and a bit of, well, I would say, rather flashier detailing. Pretty much all that's been changed to give Suran a much more, vanilla-friendly and pleasing appearance. And there's really just something that's sort of peaceful about this overhaul Suran, and like it's just the sort of relaxing place that you might want to take a stroll through, if that makes any sense. But anyway, as with previous updates to Morrowind Rebirth's vision of Suran, you'll find a couple of new buildings here, including a new tavern, and a couple of new guard towers along the northern entrance into the city here. And you'll also find that the town here has now been sort of divided up into 2 separate districts, the lower town with the docks, taverns, and a couple of the shops, and the upper part of town that has a separate walled enclosure, where you'll find the rest of the shops, a new house or two, another guard tower, the manor house, and of course the temple, sort of all rearranged into a sort of a square-like formation with a nice bit of detailing with streetlights, awnings, and other bits of clutter. And you also notice that the FPS here is, pretty good. Morrowind Rebirth was once notorious for, pretty heavy framerate hits in cities like Suran. But starting back with about Morrowind Rebirth 4.0, the project has sort of shifted gears towards optimization, and that's really, quite apparent here. This is perhaps one of the smoothest city expansions in today's video, though of course to use this, version of Suran in your own game, you're going to need to install the entire Morrowind Rebirth package, which is perhaps the one major downside here for those worried about mod conflicts and all that. But if you're planning to start a new game with Rebirth anyway, this is definitely another reason to just give it a try. And finally, moving on to some of the more, traditional city expansion mods, we have New Suran by the Wanderer. And New Suran is one of 2 of the more traditional, straightforward expansion mods for the city of Suran here. And New Suran is arguably the larger of the 2, originally released in 2005, and adding about 14 buildings to the city here, including 9 NPC homes, 2 manors, and 3 shops, which really helps to just, flesh out the residential part of Suran here, which, as I've already mentioned before, was somewhat lacking in vanilla Morrowind. And there's also a new docks area with ships offering transportation to the other cities in the SK Niles region. And anyway, we're just going to fly around the new areas a bit here. And for the most part here, this expansion focuses pretty much entirely on the northern end of town here, expanding the city limits all the way to the bridge, which itself has been replaced with a larger stone bridge to support the increased traffic. Most of this new expansion is residential, with NPC homes built into the hillside here, and 2 new, fairly large manors built along the outskirts of town, at least one of which is actually a player home that you can get. And it should be noted that this mod does actually contain some new quests for you to do. There's 1 or 2 involving the player home here, I think, though it's been a long time since I last played through this mod. And in any event, this is one of the larger Suran mods in terms of just content, though it's perhaps not quite as scenic as some of the other mods that we've looked at, but that's a minor detail, I suppose. And anyway, we're just going to go ahead and move on to our next mod, which is a new Suran extended by Nicolaythan, the Wanderer, and Princess Sampa. And this is actually a combination of the 2 big Suran expansion mods, New Suran by the Wanderer, which we just saw, and Suran Extended by Princess Stomper. And both New Suran and Suran Extended came out in about 2005, and naturally, since they both focused on the northern part of town here, they were at complete odds with each other, with just a ton of conflicts, at least until this mod came along in 2007 anyway, and it just turned two formerly conflicting expansions into one massive town expansion that adds nearly 25 new buildings to Suran here, turning this once sleepy market town into a proper city with nearly 40 buildings in total. And that makes this by far the largest content expansion to Suran, keeping in mind that Balmora is pretty much, just cosmetic only. And anyway, this compilation, if you will, really turns Suran into a rather dense city with combined residential and shopping quarters to the north side of town here, with a large resort added by Suran Extended, and a number of shops, houses, and manors built along the cliffside here, along the road heading out of town. And I will say the verticality here is pretty good. Not the best I've seen, but there's, some nice vertical elements built into this town layout. Most of this expansion is, of course, focused on the northern edge of town, as both Suran Extended and New Suran focused largely on this area here, and that just makes for some pre-packed and close-quartered streets here, which of course, does enhance the sort of urban feel of this take of the city of Suran. And as you might expect with a city expansion of this size, New Suran Extended does have a few FPS issues, nothing too bad, and certainly nothing compared to City Balmora, but just something you might notice a bit on lower-end machines. And in any event, out of all the mods we take a look at here today, this one gives you the most bang for your buck. It has quests, it has player homes, it has new shops and new items, it comes with compatibility patches for Children of Morrowind, Necessities of Morrowind, the Farmer mod, a Suran Archery shop, and a couple of other mods, so you can use it with a lot of the other popular mods out there. And if you just want as much new content as you can, possibly get, out of all the mods in today's lineup, this is the one you should, definitely check out. Though keep in mind, since most of the content here dates back to 2005, there might just be some dated elements in the city expansion. And now that we've covered New Suran Extended, it's time to take a look at Suran Extended by Princess Stomper. And yes, I'm aware, it feels like we're just covering the same content over and over again here, but well, I'm just trying to showcase each of the different mods that, changed Suran here, even when one of those has already been covered by a compilation mod. And anyway, this standalone version of Suran Extended adds a new expansion to the city's northern outskirts, adding about 11 or 12 buildings along the hillsides here, roughly following the road out of town. And, there's a pretty big emphasis here on verticality. You'll be climbing a lot of ladders in order to access some of the shops, taverns, and houses here. And perhaps the biggest feature in this mod is a large luxury hotel that occupies the lion's share of the new expansion here. With, palm trees and ivy and whatnot. And as you might suspect, since this is a mod from 2005, which may have been first released in late 2004, now that I think about it. But anyway, point is, there's some dated elements here that probably won't appeal to everyone. That said, this mod does have a lot of new content, including at least 2 player homes, rooms that you can rent at the hotel here, a series of quests that you can do, new shops to visit, new items to buy, and new taverns to, just get intoxicated at. It's a bit of an odd mod to be sure, just in terms of the layout and design here, but this is, still considered to be a bit of a classic. I believe it even won entry into the PS Hall of Fame at one point. And as you know, one of 2 large expansions for Suran, it's a nice one to check out if you're looking for just lots of new content. And moving on, we're next going to be taking a look at Suran Waterfront by Thunder. And much like Docks of Suran, this mod focuses largely on the waterfront part of Suran here, adding in a couple of ships and transportation to the other cities of the SK Isles region, but also expanding the waterfront with 3 new buildings, including a player home and a tavern. Originally released in 2011, this is a fairly scenic overhaul and expansion of Suran, with a beautiful and nicely detailed new district, including streetlights and a fair number of flowers to, just lend an atmospheric touch to this part of the city here. And for the most part, this mod really doesn't, touch upon the other parts of town here, leaving everything mostly the same. But that said, it does add in 2 new stairwells that go up to the old part of town, and I think it does actually, make some terrain and landscaping changes here. So, it will probably conflict with both New Suran and Suran Extended, and most of the other Suran mods out there. Obviously, any mods that touch upon the docks, which is, almost all of them. And in any event, if you're just looking for a smaller and, a more atmospheric expansion to the city here. Suran Waterfront is definitely a great mod to check out, and, it doesn't have all the bells and whistles of the other Suran mods that we looked at. But, all the same, it does still provide a rather fun little expansion. Coming up on our last two mods here, we have a White Suran by Basswalker, and this isn't really a town expansion or, a detail and overhaul as you might expect, but rather a unique replace mod that replaces the buildings of Suran, and only the buildings of Suran, with a new and a unique white texture. So Suran looks completely different from other Hlaalu settlements like Balmora. And I know, this isn't quite in the same category as the other mods that we looked at today, but I just wanted to, cover it here, since it is a Suran-specific texture overhaul, and helps to give the city a rather unique feel and atmosphere. So I'm just going to fly around the city here for a bit, with these new textures applied. And while this is a bit of an, older mod, dating back to, I think, 2012, this is still a pretty nice and scenic overhaul for the city of Suran here, though the textures are probably a bit dated and won't be to everyone's taste. But anyway, it should also be noted that there's compatibility patches with more than one of the other Suran mods here, so you'll find, optional patches that give these same white textures to those expansions in addition. But just moving on, our last and final mod is White Suran 2 MD Edition by Melkor and Basswalker. And hey, what do you know? This is another version of Basswalker's White Suran, only with updated textures that have a, slightly higher resolution, and perhaps a more vanilla-friendly coloring scheme, coming in a nice pearly white to give Suran a truly unique and original appearance. Much like the original White Suran, this version just replaces the buildings of Suran with new textures, and also includes new replaces for the interiors as well. And this is a pretty handy mod for those who just want a more unique Suran that better fits the, title of Jewel of the Azkaban Isles, but also just, want some better looking textures to go along with it. This is certainly a sync replacer, and if this still isn't, your cup of tea, keep in mind that Zobata has actually released a third version of this mod using Tidy's Architectura text replaces, so there's quite a few options here, and you'll find a download link for that last one down below. And anyway, that about wraps up this episode of Online Showcases, and going into the future, I will be airing a new episode of this series taking a look at various town and city overhauls, I would say about once a month. So the next episode will be sometime in late May, I think, and we'll be covering Caldera, assuming that Rubberman can, finish his big Caldera mod by then. And anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.